two vital organs of the Nepali state. They stand jarringly close physically, so close that when the resident animal of the Lion Palace roars, the Themis Palace at Ramsarpat starts trembling. It starts trembling along with the statue of Themis. The Greek goddess of truth and justice is blindfolded, but she, unlike numerous pleas for truth, peace, and justice, can hear, she can hear the roar of that beast for sure. This, despite years of state sponsored neglect towards her health. The goddess stands as a mere shadow of our past in which she even dared challenge the all-powerful royal palace and democratically elected governments alike, telling them in strictest terms to not obstruct justice by trampling on the supreme law of the land. That is the constitution, of course. Alas, those days are gone. At a time when even the sole superpower appears to be on the decline, the Greek goddess also seems to be past her prime. In normal times, also, by the way, turbulent times have become a new normal in Nepal. In normal times also, it will be no surprise if an inquiry commission finds the goddess in frail health to be sweating profusely at her own palace close to the Nepal government secretariat. That would be hardly surprising in a country when the statue of a native deity, that is the Dolakha Vimsen, this Dolakha Vimsen, located in Dolakha district, it is said to have the might of 1,000 elephants. Even this deity sweats every now and then, instilling fear of oncoming disasters, natural or man made, among the masses in Nepal. By the way, in a country where the executive appears like one hell of a disaster at all times, there's no need for more disasters, natural or man made. Even for international humanitarian agencies lodged quite comfortably in Nepal, because for them that's a lot to do anyways, even in normal times. Still, the unwelcome guests come in droves in the form of monsoon floods, landslides, never ending quakes, and their aftershocks, among others, of course. Perhaps the sweating every now and then of a super powerful Vimsane is the result of instability, unbridled policy corruption, and misrule that has been plaguing this country for generations. This, despite waves of political transformations that come, these transformations come and go like seasons in a space of a decade or so, bringing some new rulers but no meaningful change in the lives of the laity. Glimpses of a country mired neck deep in corruption are everywhere, including in the yearly published Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. In this index, Nepal often fares poorly, getting a paltry 33 or so out of 100. This despite decades of epoch making changes. Perhaps this continued success in getting a below par performance, in getting a below par CPI score, that is, the Corruption Perception Index score. Perhaps this continued success in getting a below par Corruption Perception Index score is the only factor stopping Nepal from becoming a failed state. The Lion Palace, of course, has a huge role to play in this sorry state of affairs in this country. Of the three organs of the state, tyranny is in the DNA of the executive, regardless of its shape or form. More so in a country where the judiciary cannot flex moral muscles owing to transactional relations with the executive. As for the parliament, it acts like a beast of burden, doing the bidding of a whip wielding executive, often at the expense of the country and her peoples. Nepal's parliamentary history is testimony to the fact that the legislature has become a headquarters of policy corruption, thanks to corrupt and unethical practices like horse trading and floor crossing in times of crucial votes. All this pushes the public onto the streets every now and then. Whenever the opportunity arises, the the Lion Palace, entrusted with the legitimate use of force, it rides roughshod over civil liberties, making a mockery of cherished ideals like human rights and democracy. Powered by a majority, manufactured or gotten through a popular mandate in the parliament, this executive often tramples on the constitution, giving two hoots to long held principles like separation of powers and checks and balances. Thus, this long history of policy corruption that the Lion Palace has indulged in during the democratic transformative era that began with the overthrow of the Rana regime in 1950 AD. The sellout of Nepal's rivers, uh, those are Nepal's lifelines. These rivers have the capacity to change the country for the better. This sellout, despite protests in the sovereign parliament and on the streets, is a glaring example of such corruption, and so is the tweaking of citizenship laws with the intent of bringing about a democratic with the intent of bringing about a demographic shift and turning the sons and daughters of the soil into a minority in their own ancestral land, stewing in its own juice under the shadow of a looming lion palace. The Themis Palace, especially during the last decade or so, has been unable to make the beast abide by the charter. In a country with open borders festering like open winds, the Lion Palace is again seeking to tweak the citizenship law after the sellout of Nepal's lifelines, that are Nepal's rivers, a move that will have huge impact on national security, water sovereignty, national sovereignty, and the future of successive generations of Nepalese. A move that will leave the provinces and smaller units of the state with precious little to survive on. Notably, this bid to turn a country with a manageable population of around 30 million into a wet nurse through a very controversial bill comes at a time when elections are around the corner. While Themis lies in a vegetative state at this crucial juncture, by the way, does anyone know as to how to invoke the Basantapur based Kal Bhairav, the deliverer of truth and justice in good old days, and restore Themis? Or is it possible to instill Kal Bhairav into the Themis palace itself and infuse life into him through some occult ritual? We were talking about Themis in a vegetative state in her own palace at this crucial juncture. At this juncture, another palace has woken up to the latest threat to our cherished ideals like democracy, human rights, national sovereignty, etc. This, where does this threat come from? It comes, of course, from the executive. Will this new palace, will the presidential palace be able to rein in on the executive? This question, it looms large at a time when Vijayadashami, which marks the victory of goddess Durga over demonic forces, at a time when Vijayadashami, that marks the history, that marks the victory of goddess Durga over demonic forces, is around the bend. In the life of every country, there comes a time when the people have to protect their country. They have to protect their motherland, their fatherland, their ancestral land from a tyrannical government. Doesn't matter whether it is donning that democratic cloak or something. In our lifetimes, that time has come more than once or twice. What we did in those times is past us. What we do this time will matter an awful lot. It is quite clear that this government, like many of its predecessors, does not have a will of its own. Foreign visits of self-styled emissaries in the manner of extraordinary renditions and hush-hush deals with foreign powers so that it has scant regard for the core interests of Nepal and the Nepalese, that it is more comfortable with foreign masters than it is with the people that it claims to be serving. That means what? That means we should be alert than ever. As some leading light said, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and we should be ready to pay that price for the protection of democracy, for the protection of human rights, and for the protection of national sovereignty. May truth triumph once again in this land. May the demonic forces bite the dust once again. Thus, wishing you all a very, very happy Vijayadashami. With this remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. As I have said several times, this is our initiative towards citizen journalism, a journalism that is free from vested interests, powerful interests. We request you to subscribe to our channel, comment on our presentation, and hit that like button if it really touches your hearts and minds. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.